ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Daniel Hendrick Experience. I am super glad you're here today and super excited about this young British baritone that we're going to have on today. His name is Gabriel Rollinson. Gabriel has been praised for his robustly virile sound and his attractive, towering stage presence, says Opera News. He was born in East Sussex, England, of German and American descent, and he studied at the Manhattan School of Music. And he also studied at the University of Music in Munich and also the Opera Studio at Opera Frankfurt. Continuing on in the Opera Studio of the Bavarian State Opera as a scholarship holder of the New York Opera Foundation in the 2023 season. Well, this young man has really been quite busy doing recordings of art songs, singing all over Europe, and just being a sensation out there in the opera world. A full, rich baritone. And I can't wait for you guys to hear him. And I can't wait to hear what the story is. So, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let's bring in Gabriel Rollinson.
Hello.
Hello, hello, my friend. Welcome.
Hi. Hello, Daniel. Nice to meet you.
You too. I'm a huge fan now.
Thank you.
I'm a huge fan of great singers, so I love what you're doing, young fella.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yes.
It's really great to have a chance to get to sit down and have a chance to talk with you.
Excellent. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. As advertised, the superstar of the future, Gabriel, is with us. My friend, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you for having me.
Glad you are here. Hey, where are you right now?
I'm in Munich at the moment. We're just in the middle of performances of a pretty cool opera from Karl Orff. It's
Uh-huh.
called Der Mond. We're doing a double bill at the Staatsoper with Der Mond and Lucrezia from Respighi.
Mm.
Yeah,
So you have a bit of a mixed background. Your mother's from one country, your father's from another. Is that right?
yeah. I was born in England actually, although
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't know from my accent because I don't sound English at all.
You do not
We,
sound
we
British.
no, I don't. When I try and do a British accent, everyone laughs at me, especially my British friends.
I
They
bet,
think I'm
right?
speaking Russian, yeah,
Ah, the
or
Brits
some other
seem
language.
the Brits seem to be able to do a pretty good American accent though when they want to. I'm
They
amazed.
can. The other way around though, it's difficult.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I've sung in so many languages over the last 50 years, but the accent thing when speaking, it's like, oh my God, I'm terrible at that. But I have a lot
I'm
of
terrible. Me too.
that's something in the brain like somebody who's born with the ability to paint, you just have
Exactly.
that function of the brain. I'm a big
Yeah, and I
neuroscience guy.
think exactly. And I think as you know, as singers, we've studied so long languages and how to pronounce them, especially. And for singing, as you know, it's perhaps a bit different because we're singing high notes and low notes and
Hmm.
everything in between, and it requires a special diction, which doesn't always translate to just speaking the language perfectly like you would speak it, right?
Exactly. So where did you grow up?
Well, so we lived in England for 4 or 5 years, and then we moved to the States. But I always had this German connection, so to speak, because my mother and her whole family, my mom's from in the by Mannheim in the area there,
Hmm.
in Germany, and my family still lives there predominantly. So I was always there in the summers visiting family and things like that. But most of my education was in the States, in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
is
I'm
where
assuming you speak German as well.
I speak German. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I
If I didn't know who you were and I was meeting you for the first time, I would say you weren't American because of
Interesting.
because you have an accent, but
Yeah,
it's not really distinguishable. I'm married to a Mexican, right? And people all the time
yeah.
say to me when I'm singing somewhere, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "I'm American." They're like, No, they don't believe me because I have influences from being married 23 years to a Mexican, right? And even when you
Yeah.
don't realize it, it just influences little things. So, hearing your English the way you speak, I could tell you're really educated. You really are specific with the way that you're saying the words. It's fantastic. You sound like a smart
Well,
guy.
that's very kind of you. It was interesting. I was on the subway the other day, and I just ended up talking to this American guy, and he asked me, "Where are you from? Your accent sounds so familiar." And I was like,
uh,
"I'm from Massachusetts, basically." And he's like, "I would have never known."
right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a little
but
mixture. I mean, even Massachusetts has its kind of own accent as well, right? But I hear a little bit of the
yeah,
influence of the German.
I think
It,
also because I've lived here now for 7 years or so.
it's totally there.
Yeah, yeah,
Fascinating. I do this a lot because I do podcasts with people all over the world, and just to talk
yeah.
about accents and to see if they're aware of it. Sometimes they're like, "What are you talking about?" But anyhow,
Yeah.
that set aside, we are really excited. I've been listening to your recordings that your agent sent me, and I tell you, I was really surprised. Your voice has a very full, rich, leading man kind of baritone sound. It's like the perfect Don Giovanni voice. Have you ever done that role?
I've it's on the docket, I think. It's in
Okay.
the works, but I haven't done the full role on stage yet. Um I've done I've done Così, which is
Mm-hmm.
I've sung Don Alfonso, which is also kind of it's different. It's totally a different
Mm-hmm.
tessiture and a different beast. Um but I think people tell me I had long hair a year ago, and they're like, "You look like Don Giovanni. You have to sing this role." It's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm for it.
Yeah, and folks
Yeah,
out there that are just listening on the podcast, he's a very handsome young man with dark hair and a beard and a beautiful smile. He's like your prototype of a Don Giovanni wooing all the ladies. So,
I don't know about that, but
yeah. Well,
thank you for the compliment.
Opera
I
News
appreciate
even
it.
Opera News even commented about that. So, there you go.
Yeah, it's true.
That all helps, and you're probably pretty tall. I'm like 6 foot maybe, or
Yep, bang on. Yep,
there you
yep.
go.
6'2".
Well, there you go. That's pretty tall. I was 6'3" as a tenor, and I was like a freak because most tenors aren't that tall, right? But six
Yep,
two,
it's good for the stage, right? Yeah.
absolutely good for you. So tell us, how did you get started in this whole opera thing? What's your story?
Oh goodness, yeah. Well, so my family is musical. My mother played the violin for many years, and so I kind of grew up with music in the house, and just kind of studying. I studied cello first, and then piano, and I played in the high school band and things like that. And then in my high school in Hadley, Massachusetts, we started doing musicals, and
Mm,
yeah, and so I kind of got into it. I was like, oh, this is fun, and this is nice, and I had some good roles and things, and then I thought, maybe I should do something with this. Let's start a rock band. And so I started a rock band, and I was like, this is fun. Maybe I should take some lessons and see what happens. so I started taking lessons, and my teacher, who to this day I'm so thankful for, because Jane Hansen is her name, fantastic teacher in Northampton, Massachusetts. She started giving me classical pieces, and I was like, "What is this? Like, I don't want to sing this. Like, I'm like what 16 or something, 15, 16.
Mm.
I have no no real interest in classical music aside from kind of growing up around it." But I was like, oh, this old stuff. Like, what is this? And then I think it was, some Schubert and some Italian songs and things like that. Um,
Wow.
and then I somehow I stuck with it, and I applied to various, colleges, universities around the states, and yeah, ended up studying it. Yeah.
Very cool. And when was the moment when you said to yourself, "Hey, maybe I want to be a professional opera singer"?
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, when I actually went to study it, when I went into my bachelor's, I wasn't so sure from the beginning. I was like, okay, I'm going to try this out, and see what happens. And then
Mm-hmm.
just being exposed to it every single day, being in that environment, I kind of realized I couldn't live in a different way, if that makes sense. Like it just
Totally.
made sense. It just kind of clicked. And um, and so and so by the end of the 4 years, I was pretty certain, although there was a slight wrinkle because I didn't know what I couldn't like. I was very happy doing what I was doing, but I didn't see the future with it. I was like, okay, I really like this, but like, what's the next step?
Mm-hmm.
What happens next? Like, not just like from a career side, but from like a just like inside from a musical sense, from a personal sense. I wasn't sure what I could bring to it,
Mm-hmm.
if that makes sense.
Yes.
Um, and then I ended up applying for a masterclass in Italy with Brigitte Fassbender,
Mm.
who I'm sure you know is
Mm-hmm.
amazing singer, amazing woman, amazing personality. Um, and so I did this masterclass, and that kind of just changed my perspective. I think because her perspective is also very unique because she's had this amazing storied career, obviously. Um, and and she just gave me a different insight into singing and what it could be and what I could do with it also in the not just opera but also art song because I like doing both. I think it's important to
Mm.
kind of diversify
Yes.
and
And you just
so
released a an art song album, right?
is soon, yeah, in I think August it's coming out. Yeah, it's songs of William Grant Still,
Okay.
the
And
American composer. Yeah.
and what was that experience like for you?
The album or the
Yeah,
or
recording
the mess.
it, learning this material, and
Well, it's my first time, so I've always really enjoyed American song, and I've always thought that it's underrepresented. And so I was looking around at just putting a program together, just
mm-hmm.
for a Liederabend for a recital, and I came across this Songs of Separation. It was actually, and then um, I kind of fell in love with it. And just as a stroke of luck, the SVR radio here in Germany, they reached out and they said, we're looking to record some of this music from William Grant Still, um, and would you be interested in doing that? And I was like, sign me up. um,
Wow, how
yeah,
wonderful.
so it was a big stroke of luck. Um, and I've really enjoyed recording it and diving into it because it's so. I mean, I think nowadays people know who William Grant Still is,
Mm-hmm.
but when he passed away, I think it was 1978 or something. He was basically unknown.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but when you look at American music in general, not just art song, because he wrote symphonies and chamber music and choir music,
Mm-hmm.
and I think he's really he's a pillar of American um, art song and of classical music.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that I get to interpret
Well, when
some
you
of his
get that
works.
out for the public, make sure you send it to me so I can share that with the audience
Oh, I would love to. Yeah,
and let everybody go buy it to support your adventure there. That's super exciting, man. I never got to do anything like that, so I'm envious that you at an early stage in your career are already branching out and doing kind of other genres of things, especially something that's American, like you said, which is really kind of undersold and on the world
yeah,
stage.
yeah. I think it's important, and I enjoy finding music that's not so done so often.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then maybe there's some sort of art in combining it with the more well-known things so that people will actually come to the concert or come to the
Right,
listen
right.
to the music. But yeah, I really enjoy that, and I had such a great time getting the music because most of the scores are sold exclusively from the publisher, which is the run by the daughter of William Grant Still,
Mm.
and you can only get it from her. So I called her up and I was like, I need this music, I need this. Like, what else do you have? Like, um,
How
so some of it is still
wonderful.
handwritten. Some of it's not even like so. Yeah, that was an interesting experience. Yeah.
Wow. Do you know who Jerome Hines is?
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
he was a
Still wrote for
mentor.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
a mentor of mine, but a lot of people don't know that he
Fantastic
was
singer. Yeah.
a great singer.
Yeah.
Did you know that he composed operas?
Jerome Hines composed
Y-
operas? I did not know this.
yes.
Tell me more.
And one of them was done at the Metropolitan and done in Moscow. But
Yeah.
anyhow, I'm a composer as well, and so we hit it off. We were friends, and right before he died, he called me and said, "Daniel, um, I have all of this original music that I wrote, and I don't have anybody to pass it on to that I know will appreciate it. Can I send you the original manuscripts?" So I have
Oh,
them.
wow. Amazing.
Yeah, so that is one of the treasures that I always keep with me is that I have. Well, first of all, that he trusted me to give me his treasures,
Yeah.
and then just that I love that guy so much. And you probably don't know, but Jerome Hines was pretty much a mentor to any young singer that he met.
Yeah.
Another guy, famous bass baritone Mark Delavan, was
Yeah.
another protege of Jerome Hines. But anyhow, uh, great composer, obviously an icon at the Metropolitan. I think he sang there longer than
Absolutely.
anybody. But kudos to
Yeah.
you for that. I can't wait to hear it, bro. So when you sing, do you sing it with a pure American accent?
I try.
Okay.
I
Because
I try.
one of the
Yeah,
things
sorry,
that
go ahead.
drove me crazy when I was at USC is that they would sing American pieces with a British accent. And I
No, 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 no.
never
Yeah.
understood that.
I mean, I think there's something to be said if the poet is English.
Yes,
Um,
sure.
but if the poet and the composer are American, then you've got to sing with American accent. Like,
You
of
should, right?
course. Well, you should, theoretically.
Yes, right.
Yeah, it was that's actually an interesting question because I and I had the great luck of working with some great people preparing the CD, Thomas Hampson, for example, and it was really interesting hearing his feedback because he is such an icon of. I mean, I think he's probably the leader in American art song. I mean,
Yes.
he's the guy you listen to for a lot of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, but um, so it was really interesting hearing him because having lived here for 6, 7 years now. Um, it's still in my blood, but it's really good to have an ear, and tell me, okay, this word is maybe a little bit, this vowel is a bit more closed, this vowel's a bit more open. Say it like this, say it like
Mm.
that. Um, and so that was super helpful to me, just to make it authentic. I mean, um, but in a way, I think I didn't want to imitate anyone either,
Good.
because um, I think especially because William Grant Still, I mean, he's a black composer, and many recordings are with black musicians, as there should be. And so I really wanted to make it my own thing. Um, and
Good.
so that's hopefully what what happened. Yeah.
And were you able to talk with Thomas Hampson about what you were doing?
Yeah, so he really supported me in that, and I was really thankful that I could work with him and get his take. I mean, he sung a couple of Stills
Mm-hmm.
pieces. I think the most popular one is "Grief" or "Weeping Angel,"
Mm-hmm.
um, which is I think a couple of people have recorded it, and Thomas has definitely sung it as well. So that was like totally in his blood. He didn't know all of them necessarily. I
Mm-hmm.
mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think he'd sung several of them, but that was so in his blood, and just hearing him sing it for me was amazing. Like, okay, this is how it goes.
Wow.
This is how it goes, and then
The
he sung
icon.
it
Yeah.
for me, and I was like, I can die now. This is amazing.
Yeah.
I Why am I recording this? Like, this should be you. Imposter syndrome sets in, and you're like, okay, what am I doing? Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. I had the privilege of singing Hamlet with him at San Francisco Opera many years ago.
Really fantastic.
Yeah, his voice through the passaggio is just absolutely flawless, you know? You don't hear a
Yeah,
lot of
amazing
hooking or
technique.
covering or
Yeah.
uh, that the old Cheryl Milnes "Arr," kind of hook thing. Uh,
Yeah.
doesn't do any of that. And I got to say, your voice is very smooth up and down as well. Uh, what are your thoughts about going through the passaggio?
The technical stuff. Yes. Oh goodness, I think I could talk for days about technique. Are you a technique fanatic as well, or
Absolutely.
absolutely? Okay, so we can relate here. Um, yeah. So the passaggio, it's definitely the most tricky part of the male voice. I'm sure you
Mm-hmm.
would agree. Just
Mm-hmm.
it's the it's the it's the thing that I'm always thinking about is the passaggio. Um, I think the trick is not changing so much. For me at least, is to find kind of the simplest way through it
Mm-hmm.
without modifying too much. Um, and so that the voice is kind of like this column, right? So that you don't have different sounds here. It doesn't sound different here than it does here than it does here. And
Mm-hmm.
just kind of lining it up. Um, and that actually often requires more effort than changing it, because sometimes you're like, I'm going to be dramatic. I'm going to
Mm.
do this thing. And then in German, you say Ausdruck. It's a
Mm.
wonderful word,
Mm-hmm.
of, trying to color something a certain way. And in opera, it's sometimes it's a death sentence. So I think it's sometimes harder just to keep it lined up.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Alignment was a phrase that one of my early teachers always spoke about, that you
Yeah.
keep that alignment. And, you know, Enrico Caruso said, see what you think about this quote: there is no such thing as the passaggio. We create the passaggio by bad alignment and technique.
That's great. Yeah. That's great. Well, singing is actually, isn't it more unlearning than it is learning?
Right. Yeah, because you listen to a baby when they're crying and they go
Yeah.
way up in pitch, over octaves, and back down
Yeah.
without a break. and you're like, what
Yeah.
is that? What is that thing? I use that with
And they can do
students,
it all day.
and they can do it all day, and they're not
Yeah.
tired. They don't have to take steroids
No,
to get through the performance.
exactly.
I can't tell you how many guys, at least back in the day, used to do that all the time, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
I mean, sometimes it's, yeah. I
Sometimes you have
think
to.
sometimes you have to. Yeah. Sometimes you have to. But I don't know, it's interesting. I don't know if how this was for you, or is for you, balancing like the spontaneity of, jumping in for something or having to do something, maybe when you're sick, and then also saying, okay, maybe I need to plan for the future. Maybe I shouldn't sing this role yet. Maybe I shouldn't jump in yet. Maybe how was that for you in your career, kind of balancing those two things?
I think you'd be a great podcast host, young man, posing questions like that. Well, for me, I was the father of three kids. So I did a lot of stuff I should not have sung back in the day. And I had to take, for instance, one time I was doing Lakme, which was really a little bit too light for my voice. But I had
Yeah.
that top that I could do it. So it was double cast, and the other tenor, for whatever reason, couldn't do it. And I ended up having to do 6 performances back to back.
Oh, ouch. Lakme is, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Super high,
That's
super light. And
super high and light. Yeah.
I was more of a Puccini,
Right. You have more
Tosca,
dramatic. Yeah.
La Boheme kind of tenor, kind of in the category of like Richard Leach, Jose Carreras, that uh, kind of voice. But anyhow, as a parent and a father, I really didn't have the luxury of saying, "Oh, I don't want to take that." It was about, "Hey,
Mhm.
you got to make the money because you got kids at
Yeah.
home, right?"
Right.
But you know, I wrote about that in my book, which came out last year. It's called Know You Know. 3 weeks ago, I just signed a contract for the screenplay of my life story. So hopefully,
Wow. Fantastic. Well, I will look forward to seeing that, and
yeah,
also reading your book. What's your book called again?
Know You Know, KNOW.
Know You Know. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Singing should be natural. It should be something, because if you're manipulating something
Mm-hmm.
and the voice just gets more tired and more tired, then something isn't right. And it's also not going to carry as well
Mm-hmm.
as if it were the most optimal, you know?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw a master class with a famous tenor. I won't say his name, but he was trying to get a young tenor to sing these high notes, the end of Carmen, the La Flor Cati. And
Yeah.
he said, just put it here, put it here. Well, when you're natural, it's easy to put it there. When you're not natural, putting it there means you're going to manipulate it and force it. And this tenor just could not get the high note, right? Because he was using muscle, lifting his larynx to try to get that high note. And of course, the tenor, I'll say his name, it was Alfredo Kraus, who I'm a huge fan of. But he couldn't get it, why the tenor couldn't get it. And it was so obvious that he was trying to manipulate the sound to make it go in there instead of let it. What do you think about that?
Right. Make
Make
versus
it
let.
happen, let.
Well, what's the famous saying? Bel canto versus can belto.
I love that. I haven't heard that. Okay.
Really?
I
Yeah.
have never heard that.
So I think
Yes.
anyone can belto, but not everyone can bel canto.
Yes.
Um, and I think if you're making something, it's never going to be its best.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are definitely singers having a career who are making it work, but for the voice to be truly free, it has to be, I believe, um, it has to feel like nothing's happening. Basically, I mean, of course, there are things happening, and there needs to be a certain energy and support. It's
Mm-hmm.
all very, very, very important, um, to let this be free.
Mm-hmm.
Because, in my opinion, this is just a it's like strings on a guitar or something. You're plucking the strings, right? You're
Mm-hmm.
not like forcing them somehow. So the air needs to come through and just play the vocal cords. And if you're trying to like manipulate everything from here, it's the muscles are only so large. It's an uphill battle. Um, so as long as the whole body, I mean, I think about the whole body being the instrument. It's not just the lips or the tongue or the chords. It's the whole body.
Mm.
And so if it's set up right, if the foundation of the house is built, then you can build the house on it. But if you don't have a foundation, it's going to be like Venice. It's just going to sink. Um,
I love the analogy. That's great.
yeah,
Wow. Okay.
yeah.
Well, ladies and
Yeah.
gentlemen, we should hear this young man sing. Do you mind if I play uh, this
Please.
video? All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Let's check this out.
Love can lace leaves together and make them proof against the world. Oh, strengthen whatever insubstantial roof houses a family. Houses a family. Sometimes at night all mothers waken, and with the littlest light and greatest quiet, to the rooms to see that all sleep, covered well and peacefully, to chase out dreams and let in more fresh air, and just be glad that each is sleeping there. Love can lace even leaves and make them proof against peril. Or strengthen whatever insubstantial roof, whatever insubstantial roof.
Wow. Fantastic, my friend. Congratulations. That's
Thank
something
you.
that I haven't heard before. So tell us one more time, who is that composer?
William Grant Still.
Okay.
William Grant Still, and the poets are very diverse throughout the album. A lot of the pieces were written with text by his wife, Verna Arvey,
Mm-hmm.
um, and but we've got Langston Hughes. We've got a whole portfolio of different poets. So it's
That's
he didn't
fantastic.
write so many art songs,
Mm-hmm.
and we chose most of them. We left a few out. A few of them are just not available anymore. The
Mm.
manuscript has been lost. But we wanted to really represent, um, you know, his works, and so then it was very important for us also to have a female perspective because he wrote several um,
Mm.
song cycles for the female voice. And so we decided to bring my wife also onto the album, who's a fabulous mezzo soprano, and
Okay.
she
Maybe we
sung
should
from the
have
hearts of
on.
women.
Maybe we should have on your wife someday. That would be fun too.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think she would love that.
How cool. So tell us, how did you get connected with Thomas Hampson to kind of guide you through this process? Well, how did that happen?
Well, I met him I think it was 2019 at the Heidelberger Frühling Lied Academy, which is a it's kind of like a young artist program for young singers in
Mm-hmm.
Heidelberg, Germany. And every year they have maybe 10 singers and also pianists
Mm-hmm.
working with him and with other like Wolfram Rieger and with Hartmut Höll as well, which is I met him there as well, and
Mm.
he's playing on the CD.
Mm.
So that was kind of the start of this beautiful collaboration with Hartmut Höll, and which I'm really grateful for that he was able to join us on the adventure of this
How
project. Yeah,
wonderful.
yeah,
Wow. That is very cool. Well, your
yeah.
voice is really, really gorgeous. Did you have many
Thank you.
teachers, or was it basically one or two that kind of gave you what you have technically today?
I think yeah, I've had several teachers throughout the years,
Okay.
and I think for me, I know it's different for each singer. Some like to have one teacher their whole, their whole career.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was kind of I took something from each. I learned something from each and kind of built on that. And it was also because I moved. I did my bachelor in New York, and then I moved
Mm-hmm.
to Germany. So I kind of had to switch anyways. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I worked with my first teacher, Jane Hansen, who I mentioned earlier, and then I was in New York with Maitland Peters and
Mm.
then Joan Patno Jarnell, were fabulous. Got me got me a really good start and foundation. And then when I moved, I was working with Rudolf Pierney,
Mm-hmm.
who in Europe I think is I would say he's quite well known as a pedagogue. Taught in Mannheim for many years and at the Guildhall School of Music. I think he still teaches there actually. Um, and that was also a totally different perspective and a different way to approach everything. Um, and then I worked with Michel Bret in Munich, who is a fabulous mezzo soprano, was one of the great Wagnerian voices of the last
Mm-hmm.
30 years.
Mm-hmm.
Was singing everywhere um, uh, in this wonderful Wagner mezzo Fach, where there aren't that many that can really do that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was great working with her, and that enhanced my, I think, technical. She was very technical, and that advanced my technical knowledge a lot.
Mm.
Um, and now I work with a wonderful bass called Marek Rzepka, I think it's pronounced,
Oh,
who's is a Polish bass. Um,
okay.
and so I work with him and all the fabulous coaches that I've had the pleasure and the honor of working with. So I've been very lucky that I've been able to work with really fabulous people who have enriched, and enriched my voice and my uh, give me ideas. I think it's always important to have someone just hear you and say,
Yes.
maybe you should tweak this, or as I'm sure for a singer, we can't see what's happening. We can
Mm-hmm.
feel it,
Mm-hmm.
but I especially in the development, when you're first starting out, for example, or it's really important to have someone tell you what it sounds like on the outside.
Yes.
And I think even, because every house is a bit different, it's also so important to have someone in the audience just listening, in a rehearsal, saying, maybe this part you need to sing a bit louder or
Exactly.
things like that. So it's
Trusted
important to have,
trusted
yeah,
ears, right?
yeah, yeah. So I'm very lucky to have fantastic people
Wonderful.
that I can talk to. Yeah.
Well, obviously you have a good crew around you because it's working. And who is your agent that you're signed with right now?
I'm signed with Johanna Herbst Artist Management.
Mm-hmm.
She's a Munich-based management. She was with, yeah, she's fantastic. I'm so grateful for her and everything she's done. She was with the Gastag for many
Mm-hmm.
years, the Gastag agency, Künstlersekretariat, and then she just started her own venture, and has already all the singers want to come to her because she's just fabulous.
That's
Um,
great. Yeah.
and I'm very lucky. Yeah.
Well, I've enjoyed my correspondence with her, and we had a countertenor from your same agency that was on.
Elmar,
Uh,
yes.
yeah, a couple of weeks ago, and that was the first time I've ever had a countertenor. That was fascinating to me. Once again, I'm a technical hound. I just love that, and to hear his perspective was cool. Well, anyhow, she talks very highly of you and said, "Hey, you got to have this guy on too." So I'm like, "Let's hear him sing." And I heard you sing, and I'm like, "Shit, yeah, this guy's good." Hey, I would like to share this Handel piece with people as well, if that's
Sure.
okay. All
Yeah,
right.
please.
And where did you sing this at?
This is at the Oper Frankfurt.
Okay.
This was during Corona.
All right. Well, let's hear it.
Sorge in fossa una procella, e oscurar va cielo e mare, splende fausta poi la stella, e unicorne fa goder. Unicorne fa goder. Sorge in Fausta la procella, sorge in Fausta la procella, che oscurar fa il ciel e il mare. Splende Fausta poi la stella, che ogni corre fa goder, mi fa goder. Splende Fausta poi la stella, che ogni corre e fa goder. Oh, taloni il forterrare, ma risorto dall'errore. Quel che prigioniero lo ne causa immenso il suo piacer. Causa immenso il suo piacer. Sorge in fossa la procella, che oscurar fa il cielo e il mare, splende Fausta poi la stella, che unicorne fa goder. Unicorne stella che ogni corne fa goder, ne fa goder. Splende Fausta voi la stella con i cor. Ne fa
There we go, ladies and gentlemen. Wow. That is really, really beautiful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell me, was that role easy for you?
Um, in a way, my voice has always been very comfortable with runs and with coloratura.
I can hear
Um,
that.
it's just always been something I can do. Um, and I do very much enjoy singing Handel and singing Rossini.
Hmm.
Excuse me. Um, so I think I think what's difficult for me, I would say, is all the variations that are possible. Because as you
Mm.
know, when you repeat a piece like this, the second time it's more interesting if you do a little bit something with it.
Like
Um,
ornaments to it, right? So that
Ornaments,
it's
exactly,
not just straight line. Like in
exactly,
jazz and R&B, they do riffs. So it's kind of like opera
exactly.
riffs.
Baroque is like jazz music. You know,
Hmm.
I know a few jazz friends of mine. They love playing Bach
Mm.
because it just like awakens uh, different pathways in the brain, and they're like, "This is jazz. This is Bach was
Hmm.
the first jazz musician."
Right.
Um, so I find that interesting, and yeah, and I think it's important to have ornaments. And I was working with a fantastic coach of mine, Felice Venanzoni, who is also the conductor in this video. Um, and he gave me some fantastic ideas. But I think that was the challenge of doing something interesting that also sits well in the voice. So it's a lot of experimentation, trying different things out. Oftentimes you'll learn this complicated thing, and then your voice will say, "Well, it's not so comfortable." And then you've got to make that decision, like, okay, it sounds amazing, but is it really good for the piece? Is it good for the in the end? Is it going to sound good and healthy and what have you?
Mm.
So it's a lot of excuse me, it's a lot of experimentation and kind of finding what fits and then memorizing that one after you've memorized many other different things, and sort of following the right path towards the end. So that's
Mm.
for me is the challenge, just remembering, you know, what I wanted to do with it and what my interpretation was, with all these fast notes, which you know happen quickly. Um, but it was that was a really great project, which I'm really grateful of being a part of because it was during Corona, and you know the whole world during that time was basically shut down. You know, the stages were dark, nothing was happening, and so I was in the Young Artist program at Ober Frankfurt at the time. I think it was 2019, 2020, I think.
Hmm.
And they had this great idea. Let's just do concerts and put them online. Let's televise them. Let's do something. And so it was. I'm really grateful that I could be part of a. I was a part of several projects there, but this was a lot of fun. This was great. Yeah.
How wonderful.
So thank you for
So,
showing that. Yeah.
absolutely. I didn't ask you the question that I ask everybody. Did you have a baritone that was like your inspiration or that you were super fascinated by?
I think there's many. So when I was younger, I was a bit lower. I was more of a bass baritone, and then I kind of discovered the top over over time.
Okay.
And so my idols maybe changed a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But I would say Bryn Terfel for
Oh.
certain, never changed,
Mm-hmm.
for sure. And Jaworstowski, always fantastic to
Yeah.
listen to. Um, I don't know. I really enjoy listening to Fischer Dieskau
Mm.
for especially for Lieder.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and oh, there's so many. I
And you mentioned Etienne Dupuis, who's been on the show
Yes,
here.
yes. Oh my goodness, so fantastic. Such a. I think I aspire to follow kind of that path because
Mm-hmm.
he has a voice and personality and character that can sing anything. He can
Yes.
sing high, low, anything in between, and it's so varied. And I think I I'm a little bit afraid of getting stuck in one direction and
Mm-hmm.
like just singing certain things.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe my forte is that I can diversify. I can sing Baroque music. I can sing,
Yeah.
Silvio. I can sing Rossini. I can sing Lied and Mozart and things. And that all kind of works for me. And I think that my voice is more suitable to that because it's not. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I that's kind of where I am now. Is I'm singing a diverse projects.
Yes.
And I like that because it keeps the voice fresh,
Mm-hmm.
and it keeps the mind sort of engaged. And when I look at Etienne Dupuis' career, I really it's something I would love to follow. Yeah, for sure.
Good. Good. That's a good model. And just
Yeah.
watching you and what you did with that last piece, your stage presence is very, very powerful.
Oh, thank you.
Very, very masculine looking and athletic looking at the same time. Um, but fluent on the stage. So Etienne is a big guy about acting on stage and not
Yeah,
just standing there and singing. And so it sounds like you're kind of doing
it's
that same
important.
vibe. Hmm. I think that
I absolutely agree. Yeah.
I think that's where opera is moving. It's now trying to be more engaging on multiple levels.
Yeah.
The directors are asking more of the singers these days than back in my day.
I think so. I think generally, and it's a good thing. It's a double-edged sword, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
because as we both know, the optimal position for a singer is to stand and
Mm-hmm.
face forward
Mm-hmm.
and not move. I mean, it's just the way. It's just the physicality of it. If we can stand there and just focus on the beauty of our sound and revel in that, we're super happy.
Exactly.
Um, and when we have to dance around and do push-ups and you know what have you, dig through a pile of dirt or whatever, it's a challenge, but I think it's one that can be overcome.
Mm-hmm.
And and I think it's also the times, people perhaps are more interested in something that's exciting and
Mm-hmm.
that holds their attention. We live in this world where we've got TikTok and Instagram and these platforms where YouTube Shorts or whatever. It's wildly successful because people enjoy being stimulated for a short time and then
Yes.
moving on. Um, and I feel like opera shouldn't necessarily go with that trend. I think we should fight that a bit
Mm-hmm.
because opera is more than that. I think it's a combination of it's a, for me it's one of the most amazing, beautiful art forms, and we shouldn't feel like we need to make something super engaging. We should let the music speak for itself,
Mm-hmm.
and not try and cover it with something else or make it more than it actually is. Um,
That's
some
true.
of the most beautiful productions I've been in or I've seen have been very simplistic, and they
Mm-hmm.
can still be very engaging. but I definitely agree that acting is definitely a part of singing, and but more so, I think it's acting through the voice. I think that's the true challenge.
Bravo. That should be
I,
first.
yeah,
That's first. Yeah, but
I think
if you're just singing and you're not acting through the voice, it after one aria it could be pretty boring.
exactly,
You have to be able
exactly,
to act through the voice. I mean, Pavarotti is a perfect example of that because he
yeah,
didn't move around, but he definitely acted through his voice.
it's all there,
Mm-hmm.
and and for me that's a true master is that you listen to a recording and you don't have to see a video. You just listen, and you can tell there's something going on
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
between the ears, and and that's also what always draws me to Bryn Terfel, because whenever I hear him sing, or Fischer Disco, whenever I hear him sing, I can tell he's thinking about something.
Mm-hmm.
There's
Mm-hmm.
something happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, if I'm in a performance like that, a live performance or recording, I don't need there to be a lot going on, um, because the acting is happening in the voice, and I'm automatically engaged. It's hitting me, so I'm happy to just listen. Um, and I think maybe sometimes directors confuse that,
Mm-hmm.
and they think that in order to get to that place, they have to make a circus on stage.
Yeah, that's
But
a different thing. That's a different thing.
that's a different thing. And sometimes it's good to do stuff. I think Baroque opera, especially,
That
is very hard to stage.
that
Um,
that
be,
happened to me in my debut in Bonn in Don Giovanni,
yeah,
and they had me. I was Don Ottavio. They had me
yeah,
being led around on the stage in a dog suit with a collar and a chain. And every time Don Giovanni sang anything, he would grab his crotch, and we all had to faint.
oh boy, yeah,
Yeah, and it was just like, we lost sight of uh, that the music is so great that you don't have to
yeah,
have gimmicks. Yeah, I'm not talking about
yeah,
gimmicks. That takes away from
yeah,
it. But acting
yeah,
like what I just saw you do, that's
yeah,
fantastic. And another one that happened to me when I made my debut at Lincoln Center in Mephistopheles, I was on a well, a magic
yeah,
well, laying over the well upside down with my head facing the audience and having to
yeah,
sing with three or four naked ballerinas hovering over me. Talk about challenging. Uh, I mean, imagine that your head stretched like this, having to sing upside down with an orchestra in a really big theater, which is that New York
yeah,
City Opera Theater. Boy. But looking back, it was an amazing experience and taught me, you know, I can do it. I would
yeah.
rather not do it.
It it's always there's more possible than one thinks, right? There's
Yes.
always, yeah, and and there's something that Thomas Hampson told me. Another thing I learned from him. Um, you can do anything the director asks, generally. The only thing you cannot give up is this 45 degrees.
Mm.
And of course, having a like a stable torso, having a straight
Mm-hmm.
torso, and having this 45 degrees. If this is in line,
It
anything else
works.
is possible.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else is possible. Yeah. And it
Wow.
is. It is. It's sometimes you got to get out of your head and think, sometimes you think, oh, if I'm doing this, then maybe I won't be heard. Or, I mean, just now I'm in a show where I sing my aria from the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and I had to figure out how can I sit, because I have to move during the aria. I have to move gradually backwards backstage. And so I
Mm-hmm.
had to figure out how can I do what the director wants, but also, have my technique and have my foundation. Um,
Wow.
and
You
that's
have a
always a thing.
very, very healthy perspective.
Yeah.
Yes, good for you. Well, Gabriel, I really appreciate you being on the podcast today.
Daniel, thank you so much for having me. It's really great to meet you and talk with you and chat with you. It's my pleasure.
Absolutely. And have your wife reach out to me. Would love to have her on.
I will.
And tell us, what do you have coming up next?
All
What,
right. What do I have
what's,
coming up next?
yes.
I I've got in the summer, I'm giving my debut at the Schubertiada Villa Bertran in Spain,
Hmm.
also with Hartmut Höll, and we're actually doing the still pieces. Um,
Wonderful.
More of a selection, so it's
Hmm.
going to be half of a program, and then the other half is Schubert.
Mm.
And Hartmut Höll has one of his studies has been, I think he's even written a book about it. He's is talking about how all the opus numbers until I think it's 108 or 7,
Hmm.
something like that. Those were done by Schubert
Hmm.
in the order that he wanted. And everything after that has been, assigned by various other people.
Hmm.
So I thought that was really interesting. And so we're doing groups of pieces before 108 that according to the opus that was given by Schubert. So
Wonderful. That's
so so
cool.
little groups of and then it's also thematically kind of tied to still, and I wanted to kind of have these two perspectives because still has a lot of European influences in his music as well,
Hmm.
and kind of how it's evolved, how the music has evolved, how this art form has evolved over several hundred years, and so
Mm. Good for you.
that's the
Well,
idea. Yeah.
wishing you the best. And where can people find you? Do you have a website?
Um, they can find me on my website or on Opera Base or
And tell us
um,
what your website
on
is.
GabrielRollinson.com.
That's an easy one.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, mille grazie, fratello mio.
Mille grazie. Thank you very much.
Dankeschön. It's a pleasure to have you. And ladies and gentlemen, that's it for today on the Daniel Hendrick Experience. I am super glad you were here. And if you get a chance, go to danielhendrick.com, and there you can find the podcast. And while you're there, click on the link that says book, Know You Know, and you can order a copy of my book and hear about my story of losing my voice and getting it back and singing all over the world, and now being able to interview superstars of the future like Gabriel here. And once again, brother, thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. All right, everybody. God bless you. See you next Sunday on the Daniel Hendrick Experience. We're out.
Take